Hey, I'm Suri, a therapist, a mom of 4 big feeling kids, and now a grandparent of 9. Now, I know how overwhelming emotions can feel, especially when it's not just your child's feelings that you're having difficulty managing, but your own too. So in this video, we're going to talk about something really basic and really important: what emotions actually do for us. Because here's the thing, emotions can be super intense. They can be messy, they can be really hard to navigate, especially when you're parenting a deeply feeling child. But emotions are not random, they're not a mistake, and they're definitely not something to get rid of. We have emotions because we need them. They serve a purpose. In fact, they serve a few purposes. There are reasons we have emotions, and those reasons are rooted in biology. Emotions are not just feelings, they're neurobiological responses, which means that they're wired into our brains and our bodies to help us survive, connect with others, and respond. Now, no one has to tell you to feel scared if you think someone's following you in the dark. You don't have to remind yourself to feel angry if someone cuts you off on the freeway. Those reactions, they're automatic because emotions are hardwired to help us notice, act, and protect ourselves when it matters most. So let's break down what emotions do for us. First, emotions motivate us and organize us for action. Now, one of the biggest jobs emotions have is getting us moving. They prepare us to act, especially in situations where we don't have time to sit down and think things through. So imagine this: you're crossing a street, talking with a friend, and suddenly, as you're halfway across, a car horn blares. Beep! You don't stop to analyze, you jump back. That fear, it gets you to move, and it might just save your life. No thought involved. Or picture a parent on the playground who sees their child's jacket caught on equipment and they're struggling to breathe. There's no planning, there's no figuring out, you just run. Now that surge of fear and adrenaline, that's emotion organizing your body to act fast. Emotions help us overcome obstacles, not just in the outside world, but inside us too. It's often emotions that push us to do many things. For example, speaking up when something's not right. Maybe if someone crosses a line with you, you feel an instant rush of anger or discomfort. That emotional signal is what gives you the courage to say, "That's not okay with me." It also helps you protect people you care about. So if your child is being treated unfairly at school, even if you usually avoid conflict, that protective anger is going to kick in and you advocate. Emotions also help us set boundaries. When you've had enough, you're exhausted, you're resentful, even though it's hard, that emotional pressures helps you say, "I can't keep doing this. I've got to take a break." They also might help you leave a situation that's been hurting you. So whether it's a toxic friendship or a draining work environment or just an unsustainable dynamic with your kiddo, it's usually not logic that gets you out, it's emotion. So here's the bottom line: we don't do difficult things when we feel comfortable. We do them when emotions get loud enough to push us forward. So that's how emotions motivate us and organize us for action. Now let's talk about how emotions help us communicate and influence other people. Notice how even if you don't say a word, your emotions are still speaking. Facial expressions, your body posture, your tone of voice, those are hardwired parts of how we show up. And humans are wired to pick up on those cues almost instantly. So say you walk into a room and your child is sitting at the table, their heads down, their arms crossed, they're totally silent. They don't need to say anything. You know immediately that something's off. That's emotional communication. Or imagine you've had a rough day and you sit down to dinner barely holding it together. You might think that you're hiding it really well, but your family senses your mood, and they might act out, withdraw, or worry in response. Not because of what you say, but because what they feel from you. So whether we mean to or not, our emotions influence how others respond to us. And that's why this matters in parenting, because your child is reading you all the time. And even if you're trying really hard to keep it together, even if you're not talking about it, they're watching your body language, they're noticing your facial expression, they hear your tone, and their nervous system is responding to yours. Now, when we're aware of that, we can use our own emotions to connect more intentionally instead of letting emotional energy leak out in ways that confuse or dysregulate our kids. So that's why emotions are important for helping to communicate and influence others. Now let's move on to how emotions communicate to ourselves. And this is one that's often overlooked, but also really important. Emotions are also how we tune into ourselves. They give us internal feedback. They're self signals, alarms, alerts that something is happening and that it matters. For example, if you start to notice that you're having anxiety before a meeting, that anxiety might be telling you that this meeting is really important to you or that you've missed something in your preparation. That irritation that you feel after a phone call with a teacher, that might be highlighting an unmet need or boundary that the teacher's crossed. And if you ever feel heavy at the end of a day, kind of dragged down, that might be sadness signaling to you that you're carrying too much. We often refer to these emotions as gut feelings, and it can be a kind of intuition. Your emotional system picking up on something before your thinking brain has made any sense of it. But here's some word of caution. Emotions are signals, they're not facts. And this is where we often get into trouble. Because when emotions are strong, we often treat them as the truth. We assume that because we feel something, it must be real and accurate. So for example, if I feel afraid, there has to be danger. If I feel unsure about how to move forward, I must be incompetent. If I feel lonely, I shouldn't be left alone. I need other people. If I love him, he has to be good for me. But emotions don't always reflect reality. They reflect our interpretation of what's happening. And sometimes we're right, and sometimes our interpretation is off. So when we act as if emotions are facts, we risk making decisions that don't serve us well and don't serve our kids well. We know that emotions are important. They help us act, they help us connect, they help us tune in. But here's the thing. Knowing that doesn't mean that regulating emotions is easy. And if you've ever felt like you couldn't stay calm or like your emotions were too big to manage, nothing wrong with you. There are real understandable reasons why emotion regulation can be hard. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. Why some people are just more emotionally sensitive than others. What happens when we don't have the right skills. How reinforcement and overload make it harder. And how emotion myths like emotions are weak or if I feel it, it must be true can keep us stuck. Understanding what gets in the way is the first step to building real change. See you in the next video.